Welcome to Generation AI, the show where we explore how AI is reshaping our generation. I'm Derek Stahl. On the show today, AI at the border. We'll examine some new AI-powered border surveillance towers, and we'll hear from a critic who argues they do more harm than good. Plus, is AI making students dumber? We'll talk through some new research with one of Time's 100 most influential people in AI. First, let's get to the headlines. Construction is now underway on Pima County's first hyperscale data center, much to the chagrin of protesters who were at the site last month. This $3.6 billion data center is expected to generate $507 million in property tax revenue over the next 10 years. It's expected to open up by 2028. The fight over Project Blue and others like it show data centers, the resistance to them could be a big talking point in the next election. But a new poll from Harvard and MIT found public opinion is still pretty evenly split when you ask people if they would support a data center in their area. 66% of Americans are worried data centers will raise their electricity prices, but roughly the same percentage said a data center would create long-term jobs. Taiwan's semiconductor manufacturing company has completed construction of its second chip fabrication plant in Arizona, also known as a fab. TSMC's $165 billion complex in North Phoenix will eventually have 6 chip fabs. The company expects to have Fab 2 at full production scale in the second half of 2027. Prince Harry was in Ukraine testing out some AI-powered military gear. Ukraine has become the world's proving ground for next-generation military technology. The prince flew an AI drone and operated a bomb disposal robot with a humanitarian group that clears landmines. His mother, Diana, Princess of Wales, worked with that same organization. Artificial intelligence works when computers learn from big collections of data, and there's plenty of writing on the internet for these things to learn from, but there's a lot less physical data to teach robots how to do simple human tasks. That's why some MIT graduates created something of a robot kindergarten. They say Tutor Intelligence's facility outside of Boston is the largest AI robot data factory in the country. Their goal is to teach robots how to do basic tasks like picking up items, putting items in boxes, folding laundry. At the moment, they're kind of clumsy, as you can see, because of the volume of data, and it just doesn't exist at this point.
The way that models like ChatGPT work is you read, all of the books that have ever been written and all of Wikipedia and all of social media, and then you can engage in kind of conversation like a human. For robotics, we don't have that source of data. We have to go get it.
And if you're wondering, wait a minute, aren't robots capable of building cars or tiny microchips, no problem at all? Well, those robots are pre-programmed to handle a very specific task over and over and over in a very controlled environment. The goal of these AI-powered robots is to handle any task in virtually any environment. A deleted social media post from JetBlue is raising questions about whether companies are using your personal information to selectively raise prices. In response to a customer complaint about a sudden price increase, a JetBlue representative on social media wrote, "Try clearing your cache and cookies or booking with an incognito window." Well, JetBlue said that advice was a mistake and would not have affected prices. Still, it sparked a lot of conversation online about what's known as surveillance pricing, something Consumer Reports caught Target and Instacart doing. It is legal, but Maryland is set to become the first state in the country to ban it starting in October. And there's a new pop sensation in Romania, and she is completely AI. That is Lolita Sircel. She's racked up millions of views online, given TV interviews, and is now repped by a top booking agency. A Romanian cabinet member even used the digitally created singer to promote his government projects. But this AI generation is angering some real-life musicians in that country who have put in a lot of hours to hone their craft without the same level of success. And there's some criticism that she's leaning into certain ethnic stereotypes in Romania. Coming up, a new way to monitor the border 24/7, but how well does it work? We'll speak with the Electronic Frontier Foundation about a new type of AI surveillance tower when Generation AI continues. There's a new type of AI-powered surveillance tower deployed along the U.S.-Mexico border. The company behind it says they can monitor miles of land 24/7, allowing Border Patrol agents to focus elsewhere. But are these towers a good investment? These are the new autonomous surveillance towers. They're from General Dynamics. They use technology from a Phoenix-based company called PureTech Systems. They're designed to identify and track smugglers with minimal human oversight. Right now, there are about 24 of these things deployed along the San Diego stretch of the border. My next guest has been covering border surveillance technology for over 2 decades. He's with the nonprofit digital privacy group, the Electronic Frontier Foundation. Dave Moss is the Director of Investigations for EFF. Dave, welcome to Generation AI.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, I have so many questions about this. There are already a lot of surveillance technologies down at the border. What's different about these new AI towers?
Well, there's actually 2 kinds of AI towers that we're seeing at the border and that are also in Arizona. But typically over the years, over the last 25 years, Arizona has had these things called remote video surveillance systems by General Dynamics. And then over the last few years, it's been something called integrated fixed towers. And these have been remotely viewed. Usually it's like some Border Patrol officers or some National Guard personnel sitting in a box watching with a joystick. You know, they're moving around watching things. Now you have Anduril's autonomous surveillance towers called Sentries, and then General Dynamics is trying to compete with them, and so they've issued these new AI cameras. Now there's an AI controlling it, and so you'll see the heads swiveling around, categorizing everything that it sees. Is this a person? Is this a dog? Is this a bicycle? Is this a car? And then it tracks them from camera to camera as you move across the border. It'll continue to watch them, both with video, but also with radar. And so with the General Dynamics, when you see a video, and you can see it watching people as they're hiking, cars as they're driving around. So that's what we're looking at now. But I do want to emphasize, it's not just General Dynamics, it's also Anduril. And there's actually hundreds of these Anduril ones, including some in Arizona.
Yeah, and EFF has been mapping these autonomous surveillance systems for years now. I want to bring up a map that you guys put together. You say there's at least 585 autonomous surveillance towers. Let's go to the command center here. I can show you the map. But they are all along the U.S.-Mexico border, and there's a whole lot of them here in the Arizona area as we zoom in. Dave, what do we know in terms of the history of these things? How well do they actually work?
Not at all. Okay, so what I've noticed over the years is this terrible cycle of border surveillance. What you'll have is Border Patrol or INS back in the day or DHS now will roll out a new program and they'll give it a cool name like Autonomous Surveillance Towers or the Secure Border Initiative or America's Shield. And 3 or 4 years later, there's an inspector general report or a congressional investigation that finds it's a huge waste of money. It wastes officers' time. It doesn't deliver anything. And yet, all that happens is they rename the program, come up with something else, and the same thing happens. And if you are somebody who is for open borders, you'll find this to be terrible. If you are a border hawk and want it secured, you should be irate that they're wasting so much money on a technology that's disproven year after year after year. So now they're coming back with the same thing, but saying, well, it's now the same thing plus AI, as if AI has actually deserved to win anybody's trust in this day and age.
Yeah, so there have been some government watchdog reports. There was one in 2024 where they found 30% of these towers were broken. What was going on there?
So they've said they were broken, but they've always been broken. That's the weird thing, is that I was looking at a report from like 2004 where they came back and said a lot of these are broken. It's wasting people's time. I'm like, this is the desert. You show me any piece of technology that can survive more than like 5 minutes in the Arizona desert. It can't. I don't think there's anything that can be built that is going to last anything, except for maybe indigenous homes built out of rock. Those things will last millennia. But you want to put a camera out there with lenses, it's not going to be able to last very long. It is going to continue to break. They're not going to be able to keep sending people out to fix it. It's just not a good use of money or resources. But I also want to say that, you know who's paying the price for this? Taxpayers, but also the people who live at the border. This, more than anything, it's collecting data on people who live at the border rather than collecting data on people crossing it.
We're showing some shots now of some of the other surveillance technologies that are down at the border. They have automated license plate readers. They have these cameras that are hidden in the yellow traffic barrels that we see along freeways. So there's a wide range of different technologies that Border Patrol is using. What do you make of all of this surveillance? Are these new AI towers substantially different than those technologies?
No, it's just a cash grab by tech companies. They come in, they promise things. What's going on at the border is just extremely expensive theater. Members of Congress, administrations want to be seen to be doing something at the border, and so they're like, well, let's throw tech at it. That's their solution. And yet, if you go down the border, what you're going to see more than anything are these like vehicle tires, like tires from a car strapped to each other. And what happens is an officer, a Border Patrol officer, drags those behind the car to smooth out a road. Then they'll come back a half hour later, and if they see footsteps, they knew somebody crossed through it. This is a technique they've used for like 100 years. The fact that they're using that still today, something that you might be able to spend $30 on at Home Depot, or just actually just show up behind a discount tire company and find them in the dumpster. The fact that they're able to do that, and they're still using that technology while they're blowing like $1 million and $1.5 million a pop on one of these surveillance towers, that should tell you everything you need to know.
Yeah, so
I don't think these are particularly useful. This is just, they shiny objects that law enforcement. Everybody, does anybody need a smart refrigerator? No. Are they still selling them anyways? Yeah.
In your work and your investigations, you have also flagged a system that's set up on the campus of Cochise County Community College, and we have that on the touch screen if we can take it. But basically, this is what they call an Elbit Systems Tower. Tell us about this one in particular, and what sort of concerns it raises in your mind.
The one on Cochise County Community College campus is Elbit's version of the AI towers. So you have Anduril, which is the main provider to the government, that is now gathering all of the contracts, and under the one big beautiful bill whatever, money can only go to AI towers, and Anduril is now the only one approved for AI towers. And so you have General Dynamics and Elbit coming in saying, we want that money too, we want that money too, so here's our AI towers. And so the one that we see on Cochise County Community College is Elbit's competing model. And so they've got one there. The ones in San Diego are General Dynamics, but everybody's just kind of competing because these are just tech companies trying to, appease their investors.
Yeah, and there's a lot of money to go around. I mean, the big beautiful bill, I think, directed $6 billion towards AI integrated surveillance towers. Where are we in the spending cycle for that? Are you expecting to see a whole lot more of these towers go up?
So, we've documented about 600 of these. We think there's probably closer to 800 or 900 of them. We're trying to track them down ourselves, and we do that visually. We go on the ground, we look through public records, but we haven't found all of them. They have said, Border Patrol recently put out a statement that it wanted to install 1,500 more of these over the next few years. That's a lot. That's, more than tripling the number there. However, remember, we are talking about the federal government, and they are notorious for under-delivering on their promises. So my hope is they do not succeed in installing those, or what they claim they're going to install.
Beyond the efficiency or effectiveness questions that you've raised, what are the privacy implications of these autonomous systems? I mean, do you have any concerns about the rights of U.S. citizens?
That is probably one of my primary concerns. So these autonomous surveillance towers, I have seen them in public parks in Laredo, Texas. I have seen them next to communities in California. In Nogales, you've had these older systems over neighborhoods and in people's backyards for decades. They're collecting data. And now that it's AI, they're collecting training data. The ones from Anduril, it's actually documented that the Anduril towers are collecting data on everyone and storing it indefinitely so they can train their AI systems. Essentially, the government has solely sold out American citizens and made us a product that they get for free. We're actually paying Anduril for the privilege of them taking our data. And the same is going to go with the General Dynamics stuff. in this day and age, training data is gold. That's why they're scraping the internet. That's why they're scraping our social media. That's why they're scraping every book at the library, because they want to get that without having to pay for it. Now you have the federal government giving data on people who live at the border to these companies, not only for free, but paying them $1.5 million per tower to do so.
I mean, it certainly sounds uncomfortable to have AI systems monitoring you, watching your every move, but is there something tangibly detrimental of having that? Like what could that information be used for?
Well, if we look at, say, license plate readers, you showed images of those ones hidden along the border. People are getting stopped. People are getting their cars searched. People are being detained. People are having their possessions seized, all because AI is telling law enforcement that you're driving a suspicious pattern. You are driving a smuggling route, whatever that is. In California, I have a friend whose mom just drives back and forth to the Golden Acorn Casino and gets stopped because they think she's smuggling drugs. She's going to the casino. Like, that's it. But if you're somebody who has not been harassed by police, if you've not been stopped, if you've not been pulled out of your car, if you've not been put in handcuffs for doing nothing wrong, then maybe it is hard to process. But for a large number of people, being harassed by law enforcement is a reality, and it's something that needs to stop. And I think that when we have Border Patrol being told that they're impugned, that they should be going after people, they should be looking at somebody and saying, well, if you're brown skinned and if you're driving around in southern Arizona, therefore they have the right to stop, harass you, detain you, look through your stuff. That's the sort of stuff we should be worried about. Technology is not going to lessen civil liberties abuses. It's only going to enhance them. And if you have an agency that's already abusing its authority, you're just supercharging it by giving it these AI powers. And AI makes a lot of mistakes. I think that anybody who has used Google in the last year and tried to base a actual real life decision on an AI summary knows what I'm talking about. It's like wrong most of the time. Like, I don't think we have any reason to be trusting AI systems, particularly when it comes to our privacy, particularly when it comes to our movements, or, particularly, the government should be not spying on us all the time.
Right.
Just because you living at the border is not a crime. Everyone who lives in Arizona lives near the border.
And we've seen problems with AI facial recognition systems. For example, that woman in Tennessee who was arrested by the Fargo Police Department because her face came back as a match, and it wasn't her. She was many states away when it happened. So big problems with AI systems have occurred. Is there a possible way of responsibly using AI technology? Because you can hear the supporters of this technology argue it's a force multiplier. It allows us to put more eyes in places where we don't have humans to go.
What I hear when somebody says force multiplier is somebody repeating a sales pitch. Like, I hear that from the vendors first. Vendors give out talking points, and then they're like, it's a force multiplier. I will hear them say, this is an important tool at the border. When they say important, you should hear convenient. That's what they're saying. It's like, it would be very convenient for us to not have to respect the Fourth Amendment. It would be convenient for us not to have to respect the Fifth Amendment or the First Amendment. Like, it would be convenient if we didn't have civil liberties in the United States at all from the perspective of law enforcement. I don't buy any of it. Like, I don't think that these companies who are saying that this is like a force multiplier, it's a sales pitch. Like, somebody tells you this car they want to sell you is the best car on the road. It's got the best gas mileage. It's the best safety record. They're a salesperson. Like, it's probably not based off anything. But I think that if you want to talk about the track record, if you want to talk about the data shows over the last 25 years that none of this stuff works.
Dave Moss is with the Electronic Frontier Foundation. Dave, thank you so much for being on Generation AI.
Oh, you're welcome.
All right, still much more ahead. Are AI tools helping students, or are they wrecking their critical thinking skills? We'll talk through the latest research with one of Time's 100 most influential people in AI. That's next when Generation AI continues. One of the big questions right now is how do we deploy AI in schools and how should we teach students to prepare for this next generation? I'm joined today by one of Time's 100 most influential people in AI, Allie K. Miller. She's the CEO of Open Machine. Allie, thanks for being here. And I have to talk to you about this study out of MIT. It's a study by MIT Media Lab where they compared students using AI to write an essay with others who could only use a search engine like Google to write the essay, and a third group that had no computer at all. They had to write the essay the old-fashioned way. They called this study Your Brain on ChatGPT, and they found that the AI group exhibited the weakest overall brain activity, and they struggled to recall or quote their own essays, and ultimately they scored the worst when assessing these essays. So my question to you is, what should we take away from a study like this, and is AI potentially weakening the critical thinking of students?
Thanks for having me. This is a great study because it says to not over rely on AI. It's a small sample size, but I think what I abstract away is there is kind of a good way and a not as good way to use AI. So part of that study said, yes, people who solely relied on the LLMs, on the AI systems to write their essays, they were worse essays and they showed lower brain activity. However, the study also showed two very interesting things. One was when they wrote with AI and then had to write on their own, they still showed lower brain activity. So that means that over-reliance on AI also acts as a functional anchor. That is part one. So using AI and then all of a sudden ripping it away might still not really have a big improvement. However, the second thing that I think is way more important in its study is that people who wrote on their own and then used AI to review, to edit, to get feedback, those essays actually scored the highest, and that group scored on the highest brain activity. So there is still a really helpful part of AI in that process. But for people, even adults, if you're writing essays, if you're writing a research report in your PhD, first try doing the things on your own, come up with the ideas on your own. We do the same thing in brainstorming, right? We all come up with our own ideas and then we combine. Treat AI like that teammate. First, do it on your own. Make sure that you're getting your originality out there, your brilliant ideas, and then get challenged by AI. Have it poke and prod, and then the quality will end up being higher. Can I also just share?
Yeah.
We've seen this before, right? Like smartphones came out, and you've got one group that looked at smartphones and said, oh my God, this is an opportunity to build a billion-dollar business. I'm going to build Uber. I'm going to, scale Airbnb because of the phone. And there are other people that use it to doom scroll social media for 6 hours a day. The difference is in the user, not the tool. So again, going back to this study, the existence of this tool inside of education, inside of schools, is not the right question. The much bigger question is, how are they using it? And how are we teaching our children and our students to challenge themselves with AI and not use it as a crutch?
It's interesting. I mean, what guardrails would you suggest to schools so that students don't simply outsource their work like this and perhaps use AI instead as like a tutor or a coach?
First is definitely having them write on their own first. That study showed that. And, even though it's in preprint, I believe that that is still the right approach. So writing on your own. The second is not allowing AI to do rewrites, but only allowing it as a feedback mechanism, as a coach. You could ask it and say, review this essay from the viewpoint of Abraham Lincoln and also my teacher and also Michael Jordan, and give me feedback. And it will. It might, Michael Jordan might have the most brilliant feedback for you. But that is maybe how we can test it out. And then the third is, if AI is to be used, I would love if students were responsible for showing back to the teacher, how did they use AI? What prompts did they actually use? What did they learn from the AI feedback? What did they not like that the AI did? Where did it fall behind on expectations? Having that critical mind, having that taste and judgment, and being an active participant of the AI usage, and not saying, okay, ChatGPT, write my essay. That is the type of activity that I would love to see in schools.
That's a really interesting idea. It's almost like the students have to be required to have a change log that sort of logs how they used AI throughout the process. And I wonder, should schools have specific LLMs, limited LLMs, guardrailed LLMs, not just let kids go out into the wild world and use ChatGPT and Claude and everything else?
As much as you want to restrict, they're always going to go out into the wild and use those tools. They're going to have access to their laptops or their phones or their friends' phones if they don't have their own smartphones. So we really have to teach our students responsible AI use from the beginning. Limiting guardrails might be helpful in certain circumstances, even if you just have purpose-built LLMs that are tailored for science experiments, for example. That's less on protection and much more about just increasing quality. So I like those use cases, but we're all going to have access to these LLMs. We have to start teaching students about it now. Yeah,
they're here. The idea is you got to get the right framework so you don't skip the struggle and don't build that mental muscle. We all need it. Allie K. Miller,
love the struggle.
Thank you so much for joining us here on Generation AI. And thank you so much for watching Generation AI. You can tune in Wednesday nights at 7 o'clock, streaming on AZF+. You can also watch past episodes at azfamily.com/GenAI. We'll see you in the future.